Princess Valerin sat quietly on the royal balcony of the Zuran palace, her pale silver skin glowing under the twin moons of Zurich Prime. She could feel the warmth of the evening breeze, hear the distant hum of airships passing over the capital, and sense the tension in the air. She knew what was happening in the grand hall below. The emperor, her father, was announcing her marriage proposal to the noble houses, and she already knew the answer. No one would step forward. She clenched her hands in her lap, her long, clawed fingers tightening around the delicate fabric of her ceremonial robes. She had heard the whispers for years. She is blind. She is weak. No true warrior would ever take her as a mate. A ruler must see their people. How can a blind princess lead? Valerin was tired of these words. She was not weak. She had trained harder than most Zuran nobles, learning to fight without sight, relying on sound, smell, and instinct. But to her people, strength was vision, the ability to look upon one's enemies and strike them down. She had no place in their world. A loud voice echoed from the grand hall below, breaking her thoughts. The voice of Emperor Vorac, her father. The house that marries my daughter will be greatly rewarded. You will gain lands, fleets, and the honor of the royal family. Who among you will stand forward? Silence. The same silence as last time, and the time before that. Valerin swallowed, but her face remained emotionless. She had long learned how to hide her pain. Then came the murmurs. She could hear them clearly, even from this distance. She is cursed. The emperor is desperate. Better to let her live alone in the palace. Her father's voice grew harsher. Does no warrior in this hall have the courage to take a Zuran princess as his mate? Still, no answer. Her heart sank. Not because she wanted to marry some noble warrior. Most of them were arrogant and self-absorbed, but because she knew what this meant. If no one claimed her, her father might force her into isolation, sending her away to some distant world to live in shame. Then, something unexpected happened. A voice, clear and confident, broke the silence. I will marry her. The hall erupted in gasps and whispers. Valerin froze, her sharp hearing focusing on the speaker. It was not a Zuran voice. It was deep, steady, and carried an unmistakable accent. It was a human. Her heart pounded. Had she heard wrong? The murmurs spread through the crowd like wildfire. A human. Impossible. He is not even of our kind. The emperor's voice turned cold. Step forward. The human did. His boots echoed against the polished stone as he walked toward the throne. He moved with confidence, unaffected by the judging stares of the Zuran nobles. Valerin listened carefully. His steps were steady, his heartbeat calm. He was not afraid. Who are you? The emperor demanded. The human bowed, not too low, but just enough to show respect. Captain Elias Carter of the Terran Expeditionary Corps. Silence followed. Valerin knew little about humans. They were newcomers to the Galactic Union, seen as unpredictable, stubborn, and reckless. Some admired their courage, while others feared their ambition. Her father's voice was sharp. You understand what you are offering, human. This is not a simple alliance. You will be bound to the royal family, to our laws, our traditions. Elias didn't hesitate. I understand. The emperor narrowed his reptilian eyes. Then why would a human choose my daughter, when not even my own people will? Valerin held her breath, waiting for the answer. Elias turned his head slightly, as if sensing her presence. His voice was calm, but firm. Because I see value where others do not. The words hit her harder than she expected. The hall erupted again. Some shouted in outrage, others in amusement. A human dares to challenge our traditions. He thinks himself worthy. This is madness. The emperor raised his hand, silencing the crowd. He studied Elias for a long moment. If you wish to take Valerin as your mate, you must prove yourself. Elias didn't flinch, named the challenge. A cruel smile touched the emperor's lips. You must pass the Zuran trials. A hush fell over the hall. Even Valerin felt a chill run through her. The Zirin trials were brutal, a test of mind, body, and spirit. Warriors trained their entire lives to survive them. Elias nodded. I accept. Valerin finally found her voice. Why? She asked, surprising herself. The human turned his head slightly toward her, his voice softer now. Because you deserve a chance. She did not know what shocked her more, the fact that a human was willing to risk his life for her, or the fact that, for the first time in her life, someone had chosen her. The Grand Hall remained silent. Hundreds of Zirin nobles, warriors, and officials stood frozen, their eyes locked on the human standing before the Emperor. Captain Elias Carter had just done something unthinkable. He had accepted the Zirin trials to claim the hand of Princess Valerin. Valerin herself was stunned. She had expected another rejection, more humiliation. But now, this human, someone she had never met, had stepped forward and challenged fate itself. She tightened her grip on the arms of her chair. Does he even understand what he has done? The Zirin trials were not just tests. They were deadly. Even trained warriors sometimes failed. Her father, Emperor Vorac, leaned forward on his golden throne, studying Elias with sharp reptilian eyes. You are bold, human, but bravery alone will not save you. Elias stood tall, his expression unreadable. I never relied on bravery alone. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Valerin listened carefully to Elias' heartbeat. It was steady, controlled, unlike the Zirin nobles around him, who whispered in shock and amusement. Then so be it, the Emperor declared, his voice echoing across the hall. At dawn, the trials begin. 2 armored guards stepped forward. Come, human, one of them said. You will be taken to the Chamber of Warriors to prepare. Elias nodded once, then turned toward Valerin. Though she could not see him, she felt his gaze on her. For a moment, she almost spoke, but then he was gone, escorted out of the hall. Her father exhaled. Let us see what this human is truly made of. The first trial, the labyrinth of whispers. The next morning, the grand arena was filled with spectators. High above, the emperor and the noble houses sat in their viewing platforms. Valerin, dressed in dark ceremonial robes, sat beside her father. She heard the murmurs of excitement. The human will never survive. He is a fool to even try. This will be over quickly. She clenched her jaw. A loud gong sounded, signaling the start of the first trial. Elias stood at the entrance of the labyrinth of whispers, a massive underground maze of twisting tunnels. The trial was simple. Reach the exit before the labyrinth drives you mad. The maze was designed to break the mind. Inside, strange voices whispered secrets, lies, and fears. Warriors who entered often lost themselves, trapped in illusions. A Zirin official raised his hand. Begin. Elias stepped forward. The entrance sealed shut behind him. Inside, the air was heavy. The moment Elias took his first step, the whispers began. Soft at first, like distant echoes. Then they grew louder. You are alone. You will fail. They are laughing at you. Elias kept moving, his face calm. The walls of the labyrinth shifted, the stone twisting like living flesh. Shadows danced around him, taking shape. Illusions. Suddenly, he was not in the labyrinth anymore. He was back on Earth, on the battlefield of New Damascus, the war-torn colony where he had nearly died years ago. Explosions shook the ground. Smoke filled the air. The screams of his fallen comrades echoed in his ears. But Elias knew better. He had faced fear before. He closed his eyes and whispered to himself, not real. The battlefield vanished, returning to the dark corridors of the labyrinth. The whispers changed. You are weak. You don't belong here. She will never love you. Elias exhaled. You're going to have to try harder than that. Ignoring the voices, he focused on logic. The Zirin built this labyrinth with patterns. Every maze had an exit. He studied the airflow, felt the subtle temperature changes. Then he ran forward, following the faintest shift in the air. Minutes passed. The whispers became screams. But Elias did not stop. Finally, he saw a light ahead. With one final push, he burst through the exit. Victory and shock. The moment Elias stepped out of the labyrinth, the arena fell silent. Then, roars of disbelief filled the air. Valerin's breath caught in her throat. He did it. A Zirin noble shouted, "Impossible." Even the Emperor's expression flickered with surprise. Elias stood there, dust on his uniform, sweat on his brow. But his eyes were clear. He had not broken. The Emperor's voice boomed. "The human has passed the first trial." The crowd erupted in anger and awe. Valerin felt something stir inside her. For the first time in her life, someone had defied the galaxy for her, and he had won. The air in the grand arena was thick with tension. No one had expected the human to survive the first trial. Yet there he stood, Elias Carter, covered in dust and sweat, but unbroken. From her seat above, Princess Valerin listened carefully. The whispers of the nobles were louder than ever. How did he do it? He should have gone mad in the labyrinth. The next trial will end him. Valerin's grip on her chair tightened. She should not care. This human was not her ally. He was just another fool who had stepped into a world that would destroy him. Yet, for some reason, she did not want him to lose. Her father, Emperor Vorac, stood from his throne. His deep voice boomed across the arena. "Human, you have proven your mind is strong. But now we will see if your body is worthy." The ground rumbled as heavy steel doors on the far end of the arena began to rise. A deep, guttural growl echoed from the darkness beyond. "The second trial," the Emperor declared, "is the hunt of the Vorac." The crowd roared in excitement. Valerin clenched her jaw. This trial was different. This one could kill him. The Vorac was a nightmare, a massive beast with thick, armored skin, razor-sharp claws, and a hunger for flesh. Even Zirin warriors, trained from birth, feared this creature. And Elias. He had no weapons. The challenge was simple: survive for 10 minutes or kill the beast. The steel doors slammed open. A massive shape lurched forward. The Vorac stood 4 meters tall, its black carapace gleaming under the arena lights. 4 glowing red eyes locked onto Elias. Its jagged mouth opened in a deep, rumbling snarl. Then it charged. The fight for survival. Elias barely had time to react. The Vorac lunged, its claws slicing through the air. He rolled to the side just as the beast's massive paw slammed into the ground where he had stood. The impact sent a shockwave through the sand. The crowd cheered. They wanted blood. Elias got to his feet, his mind racing. "Think. You can't fight it head-on." The beast charged again. This time, Elias waited until the last second. Then he dove forward, slipping beneath the monster's belly. The Vorac roared in frustration, spinning around to find him. From the royal balcony, Valerin listened closely. Most warriors froze when facing the beast. They let fear consume them. But Elias? His heartbeat was steady. Her fingers twitched. How is he staying calm? Down below, Elias circled the beast, studying it. The Vorac was strong, but slow. Its armor was thick, but not everywhere. The joints, the eyes, the underbelly, those were weak spots. He needed a weapon. He scanned the arena. Nothing. Then he spotted something. In the far corner, half buried in the sand, was a broken Zirin spear from an old battle. Elias sprinted. The Vorac roared and chased him, but Elias was faster. He dove, grabbing the spear just as the beast's claws tore into the ground behind him. The weapon was damaged. Its blade cracked, but it was better than nothing. The crowd gasped as Elias turned, gripping the spear, his stance firm. The Vorac attacked again, swiping at him. Elias didn't dodge this time. Instead, he jumped forward, slipping under the beast's claws and driving the spear into its exposed underbelly. The monster screamed, staggering back, black blood dripping from the wound. The crowd fell silent. Valerin's heart pounded. Impossible. But the fight was not over. The Vorac was in rage. It lunged, jaws wide. Elias had only one chance. At the last moment, he sidestepped, and, using all his strength, he plunged the broken spear into the creature's throat. The Vorac froze. Then, it collapsed. Dead. Silence. For the first time in history, a human had slain a Vorac. Then, the arena erupted. Some cheered. Others screamed in fury. Valerin exhaled sharply. He did it. She did not know whether to feel relief or fear, because this human was not like the others. And that made him dangerous. The Emperor's decision. Elias stood over the dead beast, his chest rising and falling. He wiped the sweat from his brow and turned toward the Emperor. The old Zirin's eyes narrowed. The human has passed the second trial. The crowd roared again. But this time, it was not just anger. Some in the stands whispered among themselves. Some looked at Elias with respect. The Emperor's voice boomed. The final trial awaits. Valerin swallowed. The first trial tested his mind. The second tested his body. The third was the duel of honor. He would have to fight a Zirin warrior. And there was only one warrior worthy of such a test. Her father turned to her. Valerin, you will face him. The crowd gasped. Elias looked up at her. For the first time, Valerin felt uncertainty creep into her chest. She had spent her whole life proving she was not weak. And now, she had to fight the only man who had ever believed in her. The grand arena was silent. Not because the crowd was bored, but because no one had expected this. The human had survived the labyrinth of whispers. The human had killed a Vorac. And now, he had to fight Princess Valerin herself. Valerin stood at the edge of the arena, her heart pounding. She had trained for this her whole life. Despite being blind, she was one of the greatest sword masters of her people. She had fought and defeated warriors twice her size. And yet, this time, something felt different. Elias Carter stood across from her, his stance calm, his eyes studying her carefully. She clenched her fists. Why does he not look afraid? The challenge is set. From the royal balcony, Emperor Vorac spoke. The third and final trial is the duel of honor. To prove his worth, the human must face one of our greatest warriors, Princess Valerin. The crowd cheered, some in excitement, some in anger. Valerin stepped forward, gripping the hilt of her curved war blade. It was made of Viren steel, sharp enough to cut through stone. A Zirin official raised his hand. This duel will have two conditions. 1. The fight is to submission. Death is not necessary. 2. If the human lands a single clean strike, he will have proven himself. Valerin's breath hitched. A single strike. That was not how Zirin duels worked. Normally, a warrior had to overpower their opponent. But here, the rules had been changed. Her father was testing something else. He wanted to see if Elias was truly worthy. She tightened her grip on her sword. Very well. The duel begins. The official lowered his hand. Begin. Valerin moved first. With a burst of speed, she lunged at Elias, her blade slicing through the air. Most warriors would have panicked. Elias did not. Instead, he dodged, not by luck, but with precision. He twisted his body just enough for the sword to pass millimeters from his skin. The crowd gasped. Valerin did not stop. She attacked again, a flurry of quick, powerful strikes. Her blade moved like a storm, cutting through the air, leaving no space for him to counter. Elias blocked, sidestepped, and ducked each time. But he never struck back. Why is he not attacking? She thought. Was he holding back? A battle of equals. Elias knew exactly what he was doing. He had seen how Valorin moved, fast, calculated, almost flawless. She did not need eyes to fight. She listened. She felt. She reacted to the smallest vibrations in the air. If he attacked carelessly, she would counter instantly. He needed to be smarter. Instead of rushing in, he waited. He let her strike first, testing her movements, studying her patterns. For minutes, the two warriors danced across the arena, Valorin striking, Elias avoiding. The crowd, expecting an easy victory, now watched in shock. The human is not losing. He is reading her movements. This is not possible. Valorin felt something new. For the first time in her life, she was being pushed to her limits. Her breathing became heavier. This human, he is different. Then, Elias finally attacked. The final strike. Elias had found an opening. A fraction of a second. A tiny mistake in her stance. He moved in, fast and precise. His hand darted forward, not with a fist, not with a blade, just 2 fingers. He tapped her shoulder. A clean strike. The moment his fingers touched her armor, Valorin's instincts screamed. She reacted without thinking. Her sword swung and stopped just inches from Elias' throat. Silence. Both warriors were motionless. Elias did not even flinch. He had won. The crowd did not cheer. They were stunned. Valorin slowly lowered her sword. She had never met someone who could match her, who could defeat her without defeating her. And yet, this human had done it. For the first time in her life, she felt something strange. Respect. A new fate. The Emperor stood. The human has passed the 3rd trial. The nobles shouted in disbelief. This is unacceptable. He must have cheated. A blind princess does not count as a real fight. Valorin turned to them, her voice cold and sharp. If you believe that, she said, then come face me yourselves. Silence. None dared to challenge her. Elias took a deep breath and looked at the Emperor. I have completed the trials. What now? Emperor Vorac studied him. Then he smiled. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was there. You have proven yourself human. He gestured toward Valorin. She is yours, if she accepts. Valorin's heart pounded. Her whole life, she had been treated as less. No warrior had ever stood for her. No one had ever faced death for her. Until now. She took a deep breath. Then she stepped forward. I accept. The crowd exploded. Some cheered. Some shouted in rage. Elias simply smiled. Valorin could not see it. But for the first time in her life, she could feel it. And for the first time, she did not feel alone. The arena was still echoing with noise. Some of the Zirin nobles cheered. Others shouted in fury. But the decision was made. Princess Valorin had accepted Elias Carter as her chosen one. It should have been the end of the trials. It should have been a moment of honor. Instead, it was the beginning of chaos. The outrage of the nobles. In the royal hall, after the duel, noble lords of the empire gathered. Their faces were twisted with anger. This is an insult to our traditions. One noble barked. A human cannot be allowed to stand beside the princess. Another hissed. He is not Zirin. He does not have our blood, our strength, our honor. Valorin stood her ground. He passed the trials, she said firmly. He proved himself. Are you saying the traditions only matter when they favor you? The nobles fell silent. But one of them, Lord Turvik, stepped forward. His yellow eyes burned with rage. This is not over, he growled. A weak outsider cannot change our empire. The moment he left the hall, Valorin felt a deep sense of unease. Turvik was dangerous. A moment of quiet. Elias was alone in the royal gardens. For the first time since arriving on this planet, he had a chance to breathe. He had survived the trials. He had won the respect of some Zirins. And now, he had been accepted by Valorin. But what did that really mean? The princess had chosen him. But did she actually want this, or had she been forced by tradition? He sighed, rubbing his temples. That was when he heard her voice. "You're thinking too much." Valorin stepped into the garden. Her white hair flowed in the gentle evening wind. Though her silver eyes were unseeing, she walked with the confidence of a warrior. Elias smiled. "Can you read minds now?" She tilted her head. "I don't need to. Your heartbeat tells me everything." That made him pause. She could hear his heartbeat. She leaned against the stone railing. "I know what you're wondering. You think I chose you out of duty." Elias hesitated. "Did you?" Valorin was silent for a moment. Then softly, she said, "No." Elias turned to her, surprised. She faced the sky, where 2 moons glowed above them. "I have spent my whole life proving I am not weak, that I am not useless just because I cannot see." Her fingers tightened around the railing. "But no matter what I did, the nobles always saw me as less." She exhaled. "Until you." Elias blinked. "Me?" She nodded. "You never treated me like I was fragile. You fought me with respect. You could have humiliated me in that duel. But you didn't." Her lips curled into a small smile. "That is why I chose you." Elias looked at her for a long moment. Then he chuckled. Valorin frowned. "What's funny?" "I was just thinking," Elias said, shaking his head. "I came here expecting to be killed. Now I'm standing next to a blind princess who can hear my heartbeat and just defended my honor in front of an angry alien court." Valorin raised an eyebrow. "Regretting your choice, human?" Elias grinned. "Not at all." For the first time, Valorin laughed. And for the first time, Elias felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. A dark plan unfolds. But not everyone was happy. Deep inside the royal palace, Lord Turvek sat in his private chambers. His claws drummed against the table as he listened to his spies. "The nobles are divided," one said. "The commoners, some are calling him the unbreakable human." Turvek's expression darkened. This was dangerous. If people respected the human, it would weaken the old ways. That could not happen. He looked at the assassin standing in the shadows. "You know your orders." The assassin bowed. "It will be done." Turvek's eyes gleamed. Soon, the human problem would be eliminated. The assassin's strike. Elias and Valorin walked back toward the palace. The night was calm, the stars shining above. Elias let out a breath. For once, things feel peaceful. Valorin froze, her head tilted slightly. Then, her hand shot out and grabbed Elias by the wrist. "Move." She yanked him sideways just as a sharp blade slashed through the air. Elias stumbled back. His eyes widened as a black-cloaked figure landed in front of them, twin daggers gleaming. The assassin did not speak. They attacked instantly. Valorin blocked the first strike with her forearm, twisting her body to avoid the second. Elias barely had time to react before the assassin spun toward him. He dodged the first blade, but the second cut across his shoulder. Pain flashed through him. Valorin growled. Her foot shot out, kicking the assassin in the chest. They staggered back. Elias clenched his jaw. He ignored the pain. He focused. The assassin rushed forward again, but this time, Elias was ready. At the last second, he grabbed the assassin's wrist, twisted, and slammed them into the ground. Valorin's blade flashed, and the assassin froze. Her sword was pressed against their throat. Elias, breathing hard, glared down. "Who sent you?" The assassin did not answer. But Elias saw something, a small emblem on their belt. He tore it off and held it up. Valorin's expression darkened. "That symbol, it belongs to Turvek." Elias exhaled sharply. This was not over. And if Lord Turvek thought he could kill him so easily, he was dead wrong. The air was tense. The assassin lay on the ground, still and defeated. Valerin's sword was pressed against their throat, but they did not struggle. They had failed. Elias wiped the blood from his shoulder. His eyes locked onto the emblem he had torn from the assassin's belt. It was a symbol of Lord Turvik, one of the most powerful noble lords of the Zirin Empire. The meaning was clear. This was not just an attack. This was a declaration of war. Valerin's grip on her sword tightened. Turvik has gone too far. Elias took a deep breath. His body was aching from the fight, but his mind was focused. He had faced many dangers before, but this was different. This was a war of politics, power, and survival. "We can't stay here," Elias said. "If Turvik sent one assassin, he will send more." Valerin nodded. "We need to act before he does." She turned to the palace guards, who had finally arrived. "Take the assassin to my father. Let him see proof of Turvik's betrayal." The guards obeyed immediately. Elias exhaled. Things were about to get even more dangerous. The Emperor's judgment. The next morning, Elias and Valerin stood before Emperor Vorac in the Grand Hall. The atmosphere was heavy. The nobles sat in their golden seats, whispering amongst themselves. In the center of the room, the captured assassin knelt, hands bound in chains. The Emperor's gaze was cold. "You were sent to kill the human. Who gave the order?" The assassin remained silent. Vorac's expression did not change. He turned to a guard. "Bring the mind reader." A robed Zirin stepped forward. He was an elder seer, one of the few who could extract the truth from another's mind. The assassin tensed, realizing they could not hide the truth anymore. The mind reader placed his hand on the assassin's head. A few seconds later, he spoke. The order came from Lord Turvik. Gasps filled the room. The nobles began arguing. Some demanded Turvik's immediate execution. Others defended him, calling it a lie. Elias could see the chaos. Turvik had allies. If the Emperor moved against him, it could split the empire. Vorac finally stood up. His voice silenced the room. "Turvik has broken our laws, but war among our own kind would weaken us." He turned his gaze to Elias. "Human, you have survived many trials. What do you say should be done?" Elias did not expect this. He was not a politician, but he knew one thing. Turvik would never stop unless he was removed from power. Elias took a deep breath. Turvik will not surrender. If he is not stopped now, he will keep attacking from the shadows. A moment of silence passed. Then, the Emperor nodded. "You are right." He turned to his generals. "Prepare the royal army. If Turvik wants a war, he will get one." Turvik's rebellion. At the same time, far from the palace, Turvik stood in his fortress, surrounded by his loyal warriors. The moment he heard the news, his expression darkened. So, the Emperor chooses to stand with the human. Turvik's generals were waiting for orders. He looked at them, his yellow eyes burning with anger. "Then we will not wait for them to come to us." He raised his fist. "We strike first." The war drums began to sound. The battle begins. Elias stood on the high walls of the palace, watching the horizon. Dark clouds gathered above, and in the distance, he saw them, thousands of Zirin warriors marching toward the capital. Turvik was not wasting time. Valerin stepped beside him, her face calm but serious. "This is it." Elias nodded. He had been in battles before, but this was different. This time, he was fighting for more than just survival. He looked at Valerin. She had chosen him. She had defended him. Now, it was his turn to stand beside her. The gates of the palace opened, and the Emperor's army marched out. At the center of them all stood Elias and Valerin. They would fight together, and they would win. The war had begun. The war drums echoed across the land. Turvik's army marched forward, their armor glowing under the red sky. Thousands of Zirin warriors, armed with energy spears and plasma blades, moved in perfect formation. Inside the capital, the Emperor's forces stood ready. The palace gates were sealed. The royal army had dug in behind fortified walls, preparing for the coming storm. At the front lines, Elias tightened his grip on his sword. He had fought in battles before. He had faced death many times. But this was different. This time, he wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for the woman who had chosen him. He was fighting for the empire that now called him one of their own. And most of all, he was fighting to end Turvek's rebellion once and for all. Valerian stood beside him, her silver eyes unseeing, yet more focused than ever. "This is our moment," she said, her voice calm. "We end this today." Elias nodded. "No matter what happens," he said, "we fight together." Valerian smiled slightly. "Always." The battle begins. The first attack came like a lightning strike. Turvek's forces fired plasma cannons, sending explosions across the battlefield. The palace walls shook, but they held firm. Then came the warriors, Zirans in heavy armor, charging forward with terrifying speed. The palace gates opened. The emperor's army rushed out to meet them. And just like that, the battle began. Elias charged into the chaos, his sword flashing. A Ziran warrior swung at him. He ducked, spun, and slashed across their chest. The warrior fell, and Elias moved to the next. Valerian fought beside him, her movements flawless. Though she could not see, she sensed every attack, dodging and countering with perfect precision. The battlefield became a storm of clashing steel, energy blasts, and battle cries. Elias cut down another enemy, then turned just in time to see a war beast charging at him. It was massive, twice his size, covered in thick armor, with razor-sharp claws. It lunged. Elias barely rolled aside in time. The beast's claws tore into the ground where he had just been standing. Elias gripped his sword, by sharp. Then, Valerian appeared beside him. She leaped onto the beast's back, her twin blades flashing. The creature howled as she sliced through its armor, landing a killing blow. Elias grinned. "Not bad, princess." Valerian smirked. "Try to keep up, human." But there was no time to rest. The battle raged on, and at the far end of the field, Turvek himself entered the fight. The Duel of Fate. Turvek was a warrior of legend. His golden armor shone with ancient markings. His energy blade burned brighter than the sun. He cut through the battlefield like a storm, his warriors rallying around him. Elias knew, if Turvek was not stopped, this battle would be lost. He locked eyes with Valerian. She nodded. Together, they charged toward Turvek. The warlord turned to face them, his yellow eyes burning with fury. "The blind princess and her human pet," he growled. "How fitting that you die together." Valerian's grip tightened on her swords. "We'll see who dies today." The duel began. Turvek struck first, his blade moving with terrifying speed. Elias blocked the attack, the impact sending shockwaves through his arms. Valerian slashed from the side, but Turvek dodged, countering with a brutal kick that sent her flying. Elias roared and lunged. Their swords clashed again and again, human strength against Ziran power. Turvek was fast, powerful, and merciless. But Elias was faster, smarter, and relentless. They fought across the battlefield, sparks flying with every strike. Then, Turvek made a mistake. He overextended, aiming for a killing blow. Elias saw his chance. He ducked under the attack and drove his sword deep into Turvek's chest. The warlord staggered, his eyes wide with shock. Valerian appeared beside him, her blade at his throat. Turvek's breathing was ragged. He fell to his knees. "The Empire," he whispered, "should have been mine." Then he collapsed. The battle was over. A new beginning. With Turvek dead, his army surrendered. The Ziran Empire had been saved. In the days that followed, the nobles gathered once more. But this time, there was no talk of rebellion. There was only unity. Elias stood beside Valerian as the emperor addressed the people. We were divided, Vorac said, but today we stand as one, and we owe this victory to two warriors, my daughter, Valrin, and the human, Elias Carter. The crowd cheered. Elias glanced at Valrin. She smiled. He smiled back. They had started as strangers. Now, they were partners, warriors, and something more. The galaxy had once doubted their bond, but now it was a bond that would never be broken. The story of the blind princess and the human warrior would be told for generations to come, and their adventure was only beginning. The end.